Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy CIZZ, you dig, live action, Kansas City, Missouri. And we back again. I tell you guys every single Friday, and I have yet to lie to you. I've yet to lie to you. I mean, truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues, and that is what I do, is tell the truth. I'm coming back with another fire guest. I've done it again, ladies and gentlemen. Clap it up for me. I guess I'll just clap it up for myself. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother. Let the people know who you are. I'm excited to have you on today, and I'm sure they're going to be excited after this conversation finishes.
Man, Collis, Kansas City, what's going on? I'm really excited to be here. My name is Ranteg Sandhu, out here in California, just getting through another work day in the middle of the week here, but really excited we can all connect and talk about business, talk about fitness, tech, sales, personal empowerment, improvement, and essentially whatever else comes across in the next 45 minutes to the hour, right?
Hell yeah, I love it, bro. I love when somebody matches my energy. You let the spoke with your chest right there. I was like, yeah. let's go.
Yeah.
But nah, man. He's in California, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and share whereabouts in California you are, and then let's start with your childhood, man. Where did you grow up? Give us a little bit of context on the culture behind, Ranteg, and let us know what's popping.
Yeah, man. I am probably living in the exact opposite of where I was born as far as the environment. Today I'm in San Ramon, California. So for those of you that are familiar, that's the Bay Area, like East Bay. I'm usually back and forth between San Ramon, Walnut Creek area. Great place, great city. I always make jokes. Walnut Creek is kind of that city that they poke fun at because it's the one that's close to Oakland, but if you're not from there, they don't really want you there, And so we all kind of know that type of city and how that's portrayed in movies. And so I have somehow landed myself in that environment. But honestly, it's not as bad as they make it out to be. But I was born in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia. Love it. Pretty okay place to grow up, really molded me, especially I'd say my mindset rather than my personality. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time outside, big into sports, playing with my friends, getting into all kinds of trouble. But honestly, I think I exhausted a lifetime's worth of trouble in that first era of my life being in Virginia. There was just a lot of bullshit going on. And I think a lot of us can probably relate that my future at that time, as far as my thinking of my future, was very limited. When I thought about who I could be and what I was going to get into, I came from that same environment that was like, hey, if I make it to 18, that's a pretty long life, and these are thoughts and looking back as a third grader, I probably shouldn't have been having, right? But, being a product of your environment, things are just as such, right? Now, fast forward all the way to where I am now, just full swing in Silicon Valley. It gives me a lot of gratitude for how far along things have come. But, that's a little bit about where I am now and where I grew up. Shoot some questions my way.
I love it. I want you to name two legends that came from Virginia before we move forward.
Allen Iverson.
Good job.
Chris Brown.
Okay. All right. Say less. And Pharrell.
Oh, yeah.
All right. There we go. You got to throw Pharrell in there.
That's true.
I love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about, some of your early interests. Let's say 10, 11-year-old you, what are you interested in? What are your hobbies? Did you think you were going to be interested in sports? Did you think you're going to be interested in fitness? Did you think that you're going to be interested in tech? How did we get here today? What were some of your early interests?
Yeah. So my earliest interest probably was I was a creative kid. I was always into drawing. It was always probably more monsters and aggressive type shit, right? I was one of those kids that grew up on Dragon Ball Z and some of those type of shows, right? And then really as a teenager, I got into sports. First sport I got into naturally was basketball because that's what everyone around me played, especially in Virginia. And then also I'm a younger sibling. I have one older brother. So my older brother played basketball, and naturally I think all younger siblings do. I just really mimicked what he did, right? And honestly, I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I really thought hey, basketball's cool. But now in my adulthood, having tried other things, looking back on it, Yeah, I really played basketball because like my brother played, after that, I got into track, was big into track, and I did boxing for a few years. I wanted to get my boxing license, but my parents didn't let me because of like concerns over like hits to the head, right? They just really valued my brain over my body. So
Such
they're like,
kind
you're not
parents.
right. So they're like, you're not doing that. And so the way my personality is if I can't do something, you know, competitively and at a high level and take it serious, I don't really want to do it. So once I saw that boxing wasn't going to be anything more than like training and being an amateur, I kind of lost interest there. And organically, I got into bodybuilding at the time. I went to a gym and I had just been lifting weights casually, but to my best benefit, there was a guy who's a professional bodybuilder who went there, and there's also a guy that did World's Strongest Man, and I just took interest in what they were doing, and I just mimicked them in the most like humble way. It was kind of like that whole like monkey see monkey do. I would literally just be that kid that would watch them, listen to their cues, especially like what they'd say to each other while they were working out, and then once they leave, just go do the same shit, hoping that they didn't notice. And then eventually, I gained the confidence to build a rapport with them, and they took me under their wing, and I learned a ton about bodybuilding and kind of hacked my way through a lot of the early struggles that come across in weightlifting and whatnot, and got a lot of early success out of that, right? But I never ended up taking that as far as I probably could, just because I didn't really value the long-term play of being a bodybuilder. It was just it was a great kind of it was a great platform for me. I use the gym as a place that I build there. I build my values, I build my thoughts and strategy, and I use that as a kind of something I transcend from. So I feel like a lot of the dedication and work ethic and some of those things where I can self-assess in business now, that came from like a lot of years in the gym, looking at myself in the mirror, trying to understand what needs to catch up, what's doing well, and just a lot of like, trial and error, right? But that
I
was
love
kind of
it.
the culmination of my interest. Tech, not whatsoever at that time in my life at all. I mean, come on, like I didn't know anything besides like I wanted a new phone, right?
Uh,
I was the
I love
exact
it.
same way.
I love it. I love it. And so you're growing up, you're playing a little bit of sports, boxing becomes a thing. You're like, nah, I can't, I'm too competitive. If I can't go pro with this, then fuck it. You move on to bodybuilding. You start studying some other bodybuilders and strongmen in the gym. You study, you take action, you get taken under the wing, get some mentors in the gym, and you find your love and your passion for not just bodybuilding, but fitness overall in the gym. What would you say were, let me just say, what was one principle or I guess concept that you took away from the gym and took it into business or later in life that like really applies? It can be a character trait, it can be maybe just a thought process, a mental
Yeah.
framework.
Yeah, I would say there's like there's two aspects to it, right? I say like one of the things is never stop learning and never get arrogant to the point where you think you're above asking questions, Like always just continue to learn. Like whether you're learning from a guy that does World's Strongest Man and you never want to do that, like there's still something you can pick up from him. The same way you can pick up something from, the guy that does yoga or CrossFit or bodybuilding or, functional training. There's a lot of different aspects of fitness and training that you'll kind of get boxed into unless you keep an open mind. So I'd say a willingness to ask questions. It'll keep yourself humble. It'll also give you a ton of information, and then do with that information what you will, right? I mean, applied information is always the best thing. So it gives you the opportunity to apply more information because you're taking more intel in, but also it just grounds you, you know. And then so I try to remember like, hey, to be like highly efficient in the gym. I mean, I'm on like year 12 now, So it wasn't until probably like I feel like years 4 or 5, probably year 6, where I could really like, things were very seamless, as far as like my process. And I just try to give myself some grace because I know like, man, when I'm in year 12 of business, like we're gonna be out of here, And while I'm like facing speed bumps and stuff like that, like growing pains, those are completely natural. Because in year 1 to 4, when I was in the gym, there was a ton of growing pains, you know, and those probably hurt a little bit more, you know. So I
Yep.
remember that.
Yep.
I'd say outside of that, the other aspect is on the other like end of the spectrum is like how far you have to take it. Like when I did well in bodybuilding and I started like doing competitions or like to even like win those competitions, like there's like a certain, I call it like a sixth gear you have to tap into. And I think that's why like when I meet athletes across the board in every major sport, they, whether they play golf or whether they play like, you know, football, they kind of have this certain relatability to each other because they understand what it takes to be like obsessive, you know. And a lot of people will put you down if they, you know, they consider you a fanatic or you're obsessive or, you know, it's all you do. But like if you want to be like especially great at what you want to do, like you need to put the extra time in. You need to, you know, like it's kind of like going on sicko mode, right? Like you need to know
I
when
like
to like
that.
be extreme about it, right? Like and there's no difference between like, you know, working out 6 days a week or doing some type of like, you know, training camp that helps out, or, you know, I'll send out 1,400 emails in a week, you know, that's my other workout. It's like, okay, like I know what the average numbers are. Like that's not going to work. That only works for people that want to compete. I want to dominate, you know? So if I know like your email campaign's 500, if I triple it and make mine 1,500, that's a lot of work, you know? That's going to make my day 14, 16 hours long in the office. But like, this is what it takes to be a pro, you know? Like, and that's what I consider probably the two things that have helped me um, as far as like to my success, right? Between
Love
like
that.
those two parallels.
I love that. I loved everything you shared right there. I can tell you right now that 5 minute snippet right there is going to be the first thing I post on social media. Nah, that was perfect. I think there was like the first thing you shared is so important because I think the business owners that I know that have done the best in terms of being patient often were in the gym before they started their business. There was somebody who was in the
Right.
gym when they were a teenager. They were always, or maybe they were a cross country runner, or they were really committed to a sport, one of the two,
Right.
because they understand, they understand this concept that for some reason, so many other people struggle to understand. It's just the, you know, running the marathon, like Nipsey Hussle says, you know, committing to that marathon and understanding that you got to take the stair steps, and that's a part of the process, and that journey should be enjoyed, embraced, because once you get to the final destination, you've done it. And now it's like, okay, what's next? So you really have to thrive off the journey. You have to thrive off that hard process, because once you get there, it's a big boom, and then it just goes right back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what's next? So like,
I feel like sometimes your stairway or your path might not be like, it might not be the same throughout, right? Like you might have a certain part of your path which is like very tough steps you have to do like manually, and then part of your path might be like an escalator where all of a sudden you just get accelerated, right? I feel like that's what people got to realize too, is like, you know, a lot of fitness stuff, like you do it and you don't get any immediate results, and you have to continue to put in a bunch of work with no results. Like that builds character, right? That's what will make you successful in like business or whatever venture you have outside of the gym, right?
I love it. I love it. You also mentioned turning pro. Like, I love that. Or you said, if you want to go pro at something. And I think oftentimes, especially people who come from a background of sport, they feel like if they don't go pro in that, they can't go pro in anything. But the reality is, going pro in something is really just I guess it's up here. You can become a professional. You can go pro in a certain industry and business. You can go pro in you know, motivational speaking. You can go pro in and being a golf coach. Like, there's so many ways to go pro, and once you adopt that mindset, like, I gotta turn pro, like I gotta go pro, and this is what I gotta do to go pro, and you apply the concepts and the work ethic you had with football or with basketball when you were 16, 17, and 18, and you take that into other passions or other interests or other ventures that you might consider doing, you're more than likely going to be successful. It's like, listen, turn pro, adopt that mindset, and go ham. Do what you were doing with football, with sales. Do what you were doing with basketball, with fucking, I don't know, any other type of
Right.
position. So I
Right.
love that you mentioned turning pro and going pro, because that applies to everything outside of sports as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So I do want to talk to you about, your transition out of Virginia to Oregon. So you start getting interested in fitness when you're younger, but you go to Oregon, you start college like at Oregon State. First off, did you know where you planned on ending up once you finished college? Did you have a direction, a destination? And then how did fitness hold up and help you out during your time period at university?
Yeah, so like I did some of my like whole high school time in Oregon too, right? Had ended up at Oregon State. Got, pretty easily accepted there. So I think I just kind of took the easy way out, didn't really challenge myself to do too many other applications. And the initial plan when I was going in there, I had already done some internships as far as like functional training, athlete rehab, and some of those things, because once I had got into bodybuilding, I knew like I need to expand my information, right? And also my sources of information. So I had seeked out some internships that honestly I was probably too young to do at the time, but I just kept showing up, and then you kind of become inevitable, right? And so I had done some of those. By the time I went to Oregon State, I was thinking, I can probably help train the football team. You know, I was probably weighing about like 265 myself, and I was
We got to
pretty.
pause. We got to pause right there. How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
Oh, what? You was weighing 265 and you was damn son. Oof,
Yeah, I was strong. I wasn't insanely strong. Like I had a bench press of like 365,
that's
and
still
then
solid. You was like 18,
17.
17. Yeah, that's solid. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just was like,
So
I wasn't expecting to hear 260. Go ahead.
so I was like, at that point though, I still wanted to be the athlete, right? So I was like, okay, let me get like at that point, I was over the whole high school. Like I want to set all the weightlifting records at the high school. I want to, instead get into competing. I knew my genetics were a little bit more tailored for this subsection of bodybuilding called physique. And physique, honestly, is just like competitive male modeling. Like it's just like who looks the best if you got to be shredded. And so that worked for me. I started getting lean, and as I'm learning more about training at Oregon State, I can't really put my time into volunteering with the teams and whatnot because I got to do my own training and schooling. And so I get into that. Then I realize being a trainer is lame because you don't have enough control. I realized a lot of like the reality is that you have to look at your output before you end up there, right? So if I get out of this system and I'm an accredited trainer, I either end up in a gym in under their system, or I end up doing this freelance, right? And I have at that point no idea about running my own business. And so that didn't make sense to me. And I thought, okay, well, I'm already training. Like I had helped people for fun, right? So like I had helped a couple guys lose 50 to 100 pounds just for like the sake of it, right? And I had helped my other friends naturally or just people naturally. And I was like, okay, maybe I can become a trainer of trainers. That makes sense to me. Um, just so that I can then put the systems in place, and then these people can execute the system. You know, I was slowly starting to learn about scale, but I didn't even know it. And then at the same time, I think another year had gone by, and I thought, well, damn, I mean, there's the trainers and the trainers of the trainers in the system, but if I just own the business or if I own the building, then I run all of it, right? And at that point, I started like lightly understanding, equity, ownership, real estate, and a couple of those factors, not really still understanding what I'm trying to process, right? The same time I transitioned studying over from like kinesiology focus my first year over to policy, right? Policy was just way more my thing. I was a better communicator, so I felt like I can articulate a message, and I can and I have strong leadership skills. So let me focus on that. I can leave the science to someone else. Plus, at that point in my life, I was still a little arrogant. I was like, man, like fuck the science. Like I'm so experience based. Like I can get you where you need to go. I'm not worried about the textbook. Like bring the textbook too to verify what I'm talking to you about. But man, I had spent the last 4 or 5 years just like reading articles myself, and I was way more passionate. And so I just absorbed information at a much higher rate than kids that were just doing it because it was their major, right? And so I ended up transitioning to policy. And once I had when you graduate from university, you have to do an internship, right? So I was in the policy realm. I ended up doing an internship for the state of Oregon, for one of the what is it? The representatives, House of Reps. And so that was a great experience. The guy was a lawyer full time and also a state rep. So he really showed me what it was like to have like a very busy schedule, right? Help my professionalism. Plus I enjoyed the fact, like, you know, I'd grown up in Virginia and around DC. Like, you go to a lot of those museums. You know, my dad worked for the federal government as an engineer, still does. And so, you know, while he didn't make a ton, like, he was also very, like, he was extremely professional, you know? And so like, I kind of always resonated with that environment, right? Being on like the steps over on the hill and whatnot, right? And so I did really well there. I end up declining a job offer, and I take a second internship for the US Senate. And I'm under, what's his name? Jeff Merkley. So I'm under there. I get to see things at a federal level. That's exciting. And then I kind of have a big transition. So I guess I'll pause there. Throwing questions at me.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I think, you know, we're going to dive into some of the questions I already have anyway. So it's, you were talking about scaling, and that's kind of what I was, before we got on the call, you asked me a question like, did I plan on doing personal training, you know, forever, if that's what I wanted to go with. And essentially that's what I was, you know, thinking is like the issue is, I don't know if anybody that listens to this podcast also listens or follows Naval on Twitter, but if you think about like just how much output has to go in, and then the input, or like how much input has to go in versus how much you get back when it comes to personal training, it doesn't really make sense in case you're trying to like be busy for 17 hours a day, every day in the gym, training clients, or constantly on Zoom calls with 17 people all day. Like, you have to figure out ways to put in work and then implement systems that, you know,
just for our listeners in general, I feel like what you're describing right now is that you're in the wrong vehicle. That's the easiest way to say it, right? Like, a person needs to have a certain mindset, they need to have a certain skill set, and then they need to find themselves in the right vehicle. If you're not in the right vehicle, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're gonna hit a ceiling. You're just not in the right industry. It's like trying to make, you know, multi-millions, or I should say billions of dollars selling residential real estate. Like, it's not gonna work, man. You gotta go to commercial. Like, it's a bigger vehicle, right? So I feel like you're probably feeling some of those pains within the constrictions of your vehicle, right? Like, and personal training is not big enough.
I think, and a lot of people listening probably, that was a great analogy, great way of explaining it, because I think a lot of people feel that, like probably the majority of people listening right now, most people, they know they have a skill, they know they're talented at something, right? They know that they're passionate and they're willing to work, but the vehicle that they're using currently or is the issue, or they just haven't chosen a vehicle, right? Because they're confused about which route to go, because they already know they're not going to win in this area, but they don't know where to go from there. So hire a business coach. I'm just playing, but no. So I want to talk to you about how you were like, where was fitness, business, and technology fitting into that world while you're in policy, like in politics, and like, is this in the background when you get off work at the end of the night? Like, talk to me about like what maybe day to day was looking like during that time period. Like, how is fitness fitting in there? How's business? Like, are you learning from somebody? Do you have a mentor? Like, when is this gonna jump into the story and surprise us?
It's still like, things still kind of suck at that point in the story, right? Because I'm driving to an internship. I work at the World Trade Center building in Portland, Oregon. I'm on like the 32nd floor. Things are great. I'm in a suit and tie, but like, it's still an unpaid internship, right? I'm not making money there. I actually have to pay to park my car there the whole day. I'm driving like a 2002 Toyota Camry. I'm not a big like, Toyota. You know, I'm not a super materialistic guy, but at some point I'm like, damn, I've had this Camry for the last, since I was 15. What's going on here? But I'm just continuing to put the work in, right? The days are pretty long, because after you do the commute to the city and back out of the city, I'm committing myself to another like hour and a half of training, right? So I'm working out every night. And guys, let's not be unrealistic. Like, I'm smashing pre-workouts to do so, and that's just like, that's the reality, and that's just like sometimes that's what it takes to be like in that extreme mode, right? Mm-hmm. But I was just like, I guess, the overly big intern, doing bodybuilding, or I should say like physique full swing. I had done it at a pretty high level. I did a couple, like 2 shows in Oregon, Did really well. Got a first at one of them, second at the other one, which was interesting. And then at the third one, it was like a big regional one called the Emerald Cup in Bellevue, Washington. I think I got third at that one. And then it was kind of, I was hitting that crossroads of like, okay, what should I do with bodybuilding? You know?
I want to jump in right there because something popped in my mind. So you're interning in an office setting, like, you know, oftentimes people, not only people who are like, you know, serious about bodybuilding, but also people who are just serious about their health and they're trying to get back into the gym. They're trying to eat a little bit better. They're trying to be disciplined during this process. What, if any, what maybe pushback were you getting from your coworkers or maybe from parents, like where people are like, oh, like just have fun? Like, what were like some pushbacks you were getting, and how did you push through the social pressures of not being disciplined and not hustling?
I mean, the social pressures will never leave, you know? Like that's a reality. Like even like your closest circle, your parents will often tell you like, you know, stop. And that's not because like they're trying to hold you down. Like they love you, right? Like they're inherently trying to protect you, you know? But like people are going to see you for what you are, you know? And they're going to treat you as such. It's your responsibility to see yourself for what you can be and treat yourself as such, right? So I always held myself in the regard of like, I'm already a pro bodybuilder. I wasn't even close. But in my mind, I was already a pro bodybuilder, right? So when people looked at me funny when I'm carrying around my Tupperware, because trust me, I did it, you know? I had the cold, it wasn't even salmon. It was worse. It was tilapia, right? So I got cold tilapia and spinach, and I got 3 of those in my backpack, and I go to the library and study for finals all day, you know? And that shit stinks, you know? So be it, you know? Like you think like, yeah, you know, it's going to cause a little bit of a problem. It's not that big of a fucking deal, you know? You're going to give yourself more of a, like more anxiety and put more of a burden on yourself and judge yourself. And no one's probably even going to say anything to you, right? People are not very confrontational. They're probably judge you. They're probably not going to say anything. It doesn't really matter if people judge you. It really has no bearing on your life and your narrative, you know? So if you are able to inherently see yourself in this way and construct some type of positive narrative around your life that, you know, kind of creates meaning, then all the social pressure will kind of fall to the wayside, you know? And then once you have the result, you will see how quickly it will change.
Right.
Because then people will come to you in a completely like 180 manner and switch up, you know, 100%, right? It's kind of like what you said with Nipsey before. Like, how many times on the marathon do you think he wasn't like, let me cash out real quick? Like he has to maintain the imagery of a rapper, status among other men, status among women, like leverage amongst the industry, and you know, and also brand attention, right? For everything that's shiny. You didn't think he was like, damn, let me go cash out real quick, you know? There's a certain kind of fortitude you have to have mentally in order to be like, no, what I'm doing is right, you know? And not letting any type of pressure outside of that kind of get into the ship, right?
Love it. I love it. Another 3 minutes of bars.
Hell yeah.
Clap it up for my boy, ladies and gentlemen. Clap it up. I need to get one of those soundboards so I can be like,
yeah. Bombs with Brad
exactly. That's got to be coming up next on the podcast, right? So let's jump right back into where we were. So you're interning. You got the 2002 Toyota Camry. You're kind of wondering like, okay, what's next? Like something's not hitting here. So where do you go from there?
I mean, a lot of audacity, you know, at that time. I probably shouldn't even mention it, but all like, you know, federal employee salaries are public information. I'm gonna you know, I look up my boss's salaries, you know, not high enough. Interestingly enough, I look at what I'm, you know, the system I'm in. I'm like, damn, you guys do this for that much, like, and you have kids and bills and mortgage and all this stuff. Like, how the hell do you do that? You know, I was like, okay, you know, probably need to switch gears. At the same time, I'm looking at myself. I'm like, you know, you did all this time in policy. You're probably a pretty good leader, but like, do you have any particular passion to write the next, you know, legislative bill and, you know, like anything there? And I was like, not really. Plus, once I got into politics at a level, I started to understand that it doesn't matter about what laws passed. It's only about which law is enforced. And laws are only enforced if they're funded. So the only thing that matters really is what the budget committees do, not really what laws they're passing, right? And I was like, well, that's kind of a fucked system. And so I end up, I'm talking to my dad about it, and I'm like, uh, not sure what I want to do with this, with my next play. The internship's coming to a wrap. Let's see what's going on. So I get a job in the meantime, and I'm just killing time. I did like some office work, right, for some like healthcare company. I barely remember. And the U.S. Senate shoots me an offer. Hey, move to DC. You can come work on the Hill, legislative aid, yada yada. Right? I was like, okay, maybe go back to Virginia. That'll be cool. I'll be working on the Hill, so that's like status, right? I get to wear a tie and flaunt that, I suppose. But realistically, they wanted to pay me $60,000, and cost of living in downtown DC is 59 grand, which means I net about $1,000 a year. I was like, this doesn't make any sense, right? At the same time, I'm like, I have the ability to potentially move to California, So I was like, okay, maybe I can move to California. I had the option. There was these guys that they had offered me the ability to work with them, doing some real estate stuff, right? I wasn't really familiar with it at all, but I was interested. And so, while I'm making that decision, I go to California, I just visit, right? And while I'm there, I end up in like Silicon Valley, I end up in Palo Alto. And, in Palo Alto, you have Google campus, you have Facebook campus, you have NASA, you have downtown Palo Alto, which is like pretty much where Stanford is. And then you have like SoftBank, which is like one of the biggest VC from China, right? So it's just a hub of like bright minds, And I learned a little bit about equity and ownership while I'm there, just enough to make me like get that like entrepreneurial spark, got like lit, And I'm pretty practical at this point too. I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna go make Uber. I'm just understanding like, no, I need to have ownership in my endeavors if I ever want to have control of my time, and I want to have control of my time. And so I reject going to DC. I come to California, and I'm doing real estate pretty much all week. And then I'm driving like an hour or maybe sometimes 2 hours every weekend to go to meetups in Silicon Valley about tech, because I had a cousin, or yeah, it was my cousin here in the Bay Area. I just, probably reconnected with him after like 6-7 years, because when I was in Virginia, he lived in Maryland. We both ended up moving to the West Coast. I went to Oregon. He was in California. We didn't really talk much. He's also like 6 years older than me, right? So I reconnected with him. He's big into AI. So he's like, man, you got to come out here, Silicon Valley, like come to these VC meetups. I'm like, oh shit, okay. So Monday through Friday, I'm focusing on real estate. I'm with these guys who I learn what they are, and they're actually disaster investors, right? So what they do is they seek out different disasters, natural disasters in the U.S., and then they go and buy the properties after they've been devastated, and then sell them at the corrected value once things come back to normal, right? So they invited me. At that time, Santa Rosa had burned down, and they're like, hey, not a lot of new development happens in Santa Rosa, Napa Valley, wine country. Come with us. We're gonna go buy some neighborhoods. So Monday through Friday, I'm learning how to buy neighborhoods, 80 houses at a time. I can't apply any of this information because I don't have the funding myself, right? But I'm learning how these groups move and what they do. But also, I don't feel good about what's going on because I'm buying people's burnt down lots and their burnt down houses, and while we're giving them a good deal, we kind of put them in like essentially the guys put them in like between a rock and a hard place, right? Where it's like the house is worth $1 million. The insurance company has offered $600K because the fire policy only gives that back. These guys offer like 630, and they'll be like, hey, well, we'll give you 30 more thousand than the insurance company. So technically it's a win for the guy, but the family ends up getting screwed either way, right? But the buyer gets like 400 grand of built-in equity. So by the time they build the house, it's worth $1 million or $1.1 million. I mean, they make a ton of fucking money, So I'm learning about all this new shit. I'm learning how people make money in all these different ways that some aren't even that great, you know? They're very heavily chasing after the money instead of letting it come to them. So that was interesting. But the best thing was I reconnect with my cousin, you know? And he says, man, I know you got Saturdays and Sundays off. I know it's a drive, but like you got to get here, you know? So I start every weekend showing up to these VC meetups and these different meetups where like I'm just learning about like entrepreneurship, VC funding, getting acquired, building your like business with compliance, like all these different aspects of entrepreneurship. And it's like, it's phenomenal because it's like Stanford graduate professors who will condense an entire course into like 4 hours. And then they give it to you at a high level because they're talking amongst their peers. So they don't water it down like they would.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so you get this amazing environment, and I'm just like infatuated with it, right? And I'm essentially doing that.
And how old are you at the time?
At that time, I had moved to California, left all my friends and family, and I believe I was 21 or 22.
Yeah, so that's a lot of new information and new energy. That's super exciting for a 21-year-old who's eager and hungry to learn, and especially to find something new outside of policy. So continue on, but
so what I branded it as was I call it the proximity hack, you know? Like in my mind, the way I justified it was, hey, I'm 2 hours away from Palo Alto. That's like the heart of Silicon Valley, you know? That's like where, you know, Facebook was made, right? I was like, I'm 2 hours away from Palo Alto. I can sit here and bitch about how I'm 2 hours away and be lazy about my weekends and not do anything because I am working hard Monday to Friday, right? Or I can be realistic and be like, well, how far is Kansas City from Palo Alto? I don't know, 18 hours? Like, oh, I guess those guys have no fucking chance of being there. I guess maybe I can like at least get there. Like, how close do you have to be to stop making an excuse, you know? I thought about it. I was like, man, if I was in Oregon right now, it'd be a 9-hour drive. Right now, it's like an hour and a half. What am I complaining about? You know, proximity hack. I got myself into the environment. I got near it, and that's where all the magic happened. You know, also the willing. Like this is why I'm a big believer in people need to get up and, you know, kind of get the fuck out of their original environment.
Environment is a reflection of your reality. Like we constantly need to be practicing like modification of our environment, like constantly and consistently, just being aware of what we're around, what we're close to, how can we leverage that, like it, and not just from a money or business perspective, our health. Like that's another reason we were talking about before our conversation. That's another reason I love California. Like, of course, anybody, if you're super disciplined and you're like just so hungry, you'll go out and run in the snow. But how much more likely am I to go out and go on a 30-minute walk right now or go on a run if the weather's decent? How much more likely when I get off work and hit the gym and I also want to get a nice walk in, am I to go if Runyon Canyon's down the street versus if it's a snowstorm outside? Like, I don't hate Kansas City, but I definitely think about the importance of my environment based off of the desires and the way I want to live. And so that's important for what you're saying. So continue because you're spitting fire. So that's why I'm just quiet over here because I'm enjoying this. So, and I think the audience will enjoy it as well. So
you know, I'm sticking now. Like I'm continuing to humble myself and learn, and I'm hanging out with my cousin a lot. You know, this guy's like he's sharp. You know, he's incredibly sharp, and he's all like full swing into software. Taught me all about scaling. I'll just share like the most humbling moment for me, right? One time we're working together. We go to WeWork. It's Saturday. I probably put in like, I think I'd maybe done like 8 hours, 8 or 10 hours of work on a Saturday. So I was feeling good about myself because I was like, damn, I at that point I was still doing like my normal 40-hour weeks. So I'd done 40 hours for my week for my job for like the real estate stuff. And then I'd put another 8 or 10 hours on the weekend, and I was like, damn, like that's probably like 50 so hours of work this week. Like I'm hitting it. And you know, naturally it's me and my cousin, so we're talking a little shit to each other. So I'm talking my shit, and I was like, you know, I went off today. And he tells me, he's like not, you know, not to put you down. He's like, I'm just gonna be realistic with you for a second. He's like, I also put in 10 hours today, but also I had 7 employees put in 10 hours today on my behalf. And so I got 70 hours of work done today on my project, and you got 10 hours of work done today on your project. You can't even do 70 hours in 1 week, and I do 70 hours in a day. Boom. He
Boom.
wasn't trying to put me down. He was trying to teach me about scale.
Yeah.
And he taught me that there's no such thing as like, I'm going to grind my way to success. You're not going to like, you got to get away from that like infatuation with the grind and like working hard. Like, you got to understand, like, yes, that's an aspect of it, but a strong aspect is also like how you set yourself up, like posturing, and then like working efficiently and smart, you know, like, so that was like tremendous. Right. So the guy, like, he's a great guy, always willing to put me up on game. So he's teaching me how to scale software, all this stuff. Whole time I'm full swing. I had these guys that were disaster investors. They're like, hey, at that time, think of like 2019 Houston floods, you know? So they're like, oh, we're going to Houston. I was like, nah, man, like, good luck to you guys. Like, no disrespect, but like, it's just not for me, you know? And so they're like, all right, like, fuck you, we're out of here. And so I was kind of like, you know, what do I do next? I end up just getting my real estate license. I jump full swing into commercial real estate, right? So rather than like,
this guy's a savage.
so rather than like being like, all right, you know, because when you're an investor, you don't have to have any licenses, so you're just doing your thing. At that point, I played investor for like a while then, and I was like, okay, let me understand, like, on the other end of the table, that real estate agent, what does he want? And the only way I understand what he wants and his needs is to become him. So I get my real estate license, and I go straight to commercial because I felt like residential is a waste of time. You're selling people on emotion. That's not my deal. You know, I sell people on like numbers, you know, like whether it works or not, like commercial real estate sells itself. Either it's going to fit your company or it's not. Like, I'm not here to tell you how cute it is, you know? And so I get into commercial real estate. I did get to do some badass transactions, can't lie. I represented a public company, also represented the country of Fiji, which was tremendous. So got to be representatives on both of those, work with like the whole government procedure with the country of Fiji and whatnot. And there, I think it's prime minister. And then, you know, at the same time, still like learning from my cousin, right? Trying to understand tech, get into tech. But, you know, if I'm going to do tech, it has to be tech and fitness, because fitness is my passion. And in the back end, I've been burning the candle both ways, you know, trying to still lift weights. But then I'm in California doing real estate, trying to go to meetups. But like, what do I do now? Like, discard 10 years of work in the gym? Like, that didn't make sense to me. And so my whole thing is like, I got to learn tech, but I got to bring it back to sports and fitness. Like, there's a reason why I'm addicted to this stuff. Like, that's my gift, you know? Like, I just have results because this shit comes really easy to me, you know? Like, yes, I did do a lot of work. Yes, I started when I was 14 years old. So I'm on chapter 12 of my fitness journey. So don't compare my chapter 12 to your chapter 6 or your chapter 4. But I just wasn't willing to let it go. And that's when finally my boy had made a tech company that I saw myself having a place in, you know? He had essentially built out a streaming platform, you know? And like, I hate to be like a name dropper, but like, he had done a project and it went really well. He ended up working with Kanye West and they did some badass shit, you know? And so his stuff had started to take off. And he pretty much told me, he's like, hey man, I'm making these streaming platforms, and now I'm including cryptos into it, and I'm including blockchain technology and partnerships into it, and I'm including NFT minting into it. And pretty much I'm doing this for global brands across the world, you know? So like, pretty much like Kanye's and above, you know? Or Kanye's and at parks. I don't think there's too many people that go above Kanye. But the guy's got like $4 billion.
Not after this documentary.
Right? So, you know, my thing was like, okay, that's badass, but realistically, like, my sales and entrepreneurial skill set is not at that level to deal with like the whales. So let me do this for just fitness pros, like just professional athletes. So he's like, yeah, he gave me free reign, you know, which was like the most amazing thing, is like, when you finally, like, you link up with some people that are on your exact same like frequency, and you don't really have to slow down what you talk about or minimize the size of what you talk about, it's phenomenal, you know? So like, this is one of my first, like, yeah, he's family, but like, he's also like a really good friend of mine by choice, you know? So I finally got around someone that, like, he pushed me, you know? I'm so used to kind of being the the one that holds people accountable or like displaying leadership in my peer groups, that finally I got on someone that was like, well, what are you doing? Like, I know you work hard in the gym, but how hard do you work at work? You know, because the way I worked out in the gym, and I was like, yeah, like 2 hours in the gym, 3 hours in the gym, like I understand how that happens, you know, like you're not lifting weights the whole time, but I understand the commitment and you know what it takes. And then he was displaying that at work. And so I admired that. And I thought, okay, let me figure out how to do that, you know? And like over time by hanging out with him, it's been like mutual benefit because the guy started working out himself and now he's getting his abs in and he's getting lean just by finally like exercising, right? He's probably gonna try to make him one of the like fittest tech CEOs in the game, right?
That'd be sick.
And then on the other side, he's showing me like how to push my capacity, you know, that, hey man, when you were making 3-figure checks, like you're the same person. Now you made a 5-figure check, you're the same fucking person. You know, when you made 3 figures at once, you made a couple $100. You didn't think it was possible to make 5 figures at once. Now you made 5 figures at once. You probably think it's impossible to make 7 or 8 figures at once, right? But you know, you got to look back at 5 years ago how you were thinking too. Stop minimizing yourself, right? Same thing with work ethic. Like 8 hours is not that much. Like pick it up, you know. So for me, it was like, okay, like I get that. Like you got to train the muscle, just like lifting, you know. So I went from 8 hours to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 14. I was like, okay, if I can do 14 to 16-hour days, 6 days a week, I can compress time. That's the whole concept, right? If I can compress time, I can get 2 or 3 years of results in 1 year, you know? So if you're moving fast in business, this is how you got to operate, right? You got guys like Ed Milet talk about doing 3 days in one, right? They do like the 5 a.m. to noon, noon to 5 again, 5 p.m., and then like 5 p.m. to maybe like 11. They're doing like a third day with like family and friends, right? And so it's all about compressing time. So I'm learning those things, and I get essentially full reign on my own like subsidiary company, you know. And so that's called Mintdropz Sports. So I'm the lead of Mintdropz Sports, doing that full swing now. Throw me some questions before I maybe jump into that.
Absolutely, yeah. So that we're definitely going to transition to that, and that's how we'll lead the rest of this conversation. Before we do that, I want to ask you, for those listeners out there who are either new to business and the concept of scaling, or are just starting their business, or might be deep in it, what are some questions that you ask yourself, or that you would ask yourself if you were, when you think about scaling? So like, say somebody's a business owner right now, they just started their business. There's a lot of work to do. What questions are you asking yourself? Like how, you know how some words can just be some flashy words, but you don't know what the fuck to do with it. Like what can somebody, how does somebody scale, or what questions should they be asking themselves in order to, you know, get started on that mental process, working towards scaling and being more efficient with their time?
So there's different aspects to it, right? Like depending on like what you're trying to scale, right? If we get very technical and we're saying about like scaling a business, then it's very important that when you build that business, you build it in a way so that it is scalable, right? Like if you build a heavily like service-based business that requires for you to serve your customer or do some type of service-based transaction, you're not building a scalable business, right? Because it requires you to be involved, right? So if we're talking about business scaling and we're looking into like, you know, structure there, the easiest thing I always remind myself is that my goal is to build something once and sell it 1,000,000 times, not to build 1,000,000 things and sell those 1,000,000 times over, you know? Like this is the power of really like scale and software too, right? When it comes to like, I think what we're talking about here for our people listening is understanding the value of their time and also what's not worth their time, right? Most of you guys have not put a price point on your time, right? You probably just put whatever the market gives you right now. So if your employer pays you $20 an hour, you say my time is worth that. If they give you, you know, $80 for a session, you probably think it's that. But you have essentially like outside variables or like the market, you know, dictate your value on your time, right? So you need to understand that like, okay, you know, if I'm getting paid $80 an hour and if I can outsource that, right? If I can put that $80 somewhere else, can I do something with my hour will generate more than $80, you know? So if you get paid $80 for a training session, you personally, right? And you pass that off to me and I do it for you, no problem to you. And then you go figure out something that makes you $100. I mean, it was a value to you to scale, right? And look at a way to outsource this work, right? And so the most practical thing is to give virtual assistants, you know? They don't cost that much. There's tons, it's a global economy, you know? If you have tons of shit to do, like go to Fiverr and look up virtual assistants. They start at $5 an hour. $5 an hour, like it's nothing, you know? And for them, like you have to think about it, the US dollar translates over to whatever country they're in, and it actually is a great salary for them. They're doing this stuff on purpose. They're not being forced to do this work, right? So I mean, as far as like ethics and right there, like don't try to like blur the lines. You got to understand how to actually like put systems into play and then like grow your business, right? So like it's more so like measuring your value and then like being smart about your decisions. Like some things are just not worth your time. Like, you know, like it's like the first 15 minutes when an athlete's rolling out, like you do not need to be there for that, you know? Like they need to know what's being done and there needs to be a certain certainty that they'll do it. But like you do not need to be there for that, you know? Like take your time back, you know? Like that's when you figure out like, okay, no, I'm gonna do some paperwork during this time because that'll save me 15 minutes elsewhere so I can put that into something else, you know? Like always just find ways to collect your time and energy and bring it back home, you know?
I love it. I love it. And so let's jump into it, man. Let's talk about Mintdropz.
Yeah.
Whew. I've been looking at the website the past few days. Like I'm trying to get into Web3 NFTs and understand it more and more. And you little by little you start to understand it, but it's still challenging. So for those individuals out there who are just don't know what the hell Web3 is, they don't know what NFTs are, they don't know shit about this. Give your best explanation of what Mintdropz Sports is and the value proposition.
All right, I'm gonna start off with Web3 before I get into anything with Mintdropz, right?
Hell yeah. Yep.
So let's just start off, like we got to preface this with a little bit. Internet is created in 1950s. You guys need to know that, right? Made by the military, 1950s to 1990s. It's only used by the military and for universities, you know? 1990s, the internet is commercialized. They call it Web 1. That's when they create essentially a bunch of blogs. You can read a bunch of stuff on the internet. It's the era of information, you know, information overload, no more libraries, right? That's 1990 to about 2002. 2002, things blow up. Web 2 comes on the scene. What is that? The engaging internet. What you guys know is social media. No more just reading. No, now you can write on the internet. You guys probably don't think you write a lot, but you write a ton, whether it's through your tweets or really now you're writing pictures and videos and a bunch of other things. It's all just posting, right? It's the engaging internet. Web 3 comes out essentially in like 2018, right? So 2003 to 2018, Web 2 is developing. You're getting essentially all these giants coming on the scene and making what is like the infrastructure of the internet, right? So your big dominators are Google and Amazon and Cloudflare. Those companies essentially make it so that every other company can operate. And if you don't have those company services, essentially don't have a site. So they own like the base layer of the internet now. Now you have Web 3 on the scene. Web 3 is all about decentralizing. So what that does is creates digital wallets for people. And now you can connect your wallet to different sites, right? Why is this important, right? So one example I always give my athlete is like, isn't it a shame that you have a blue check and you're verified on your Instagram, but if you go make a Twitter, you have to start all over and you're not verified? Like if you own that blue check mark on Instagram and it's yours, then that's a digital asset on your profile, right? But it's not technically it's your digital asset, but that asset cannot go anywhere else besides Instagram, right?
Doesn't travel with you.
If social medias were interoperable, which means they were able to connect, you could then take your following and your blue check mark to different social medias, right? Which would be tremendous for someone that already has 1 million followers on Facebook. Now Instagram's come about and he wants to transition his following, but he can't because he has to make a new login, a new profile, and essentially just beg people to, hey, go follow me on the new thing, and he has a bunch of turnover, right? So Web3 is the connection of all these different like entities in the internet, right? There's a lot of aspects to it. What it all really comes from is the fruition of blockchain technology, right? You already know what a lot of blockchains are. An example of the most like popular one probably is Bitcoin, right? But these blockchains have created a bunch of different features that you know of today, right? So one feature of the blockchain, cryptocurrency, right? Another feature of the blockchain, NFTs, right? So there's a lot of things you're hearing about it, but really where it stems from is blockchains, right? It's a very powerful advancement in tech, right? It's created this whole, crypto space, decentralized finance, a lot of things going on as far as like, global structure. So that's like Web3 and like a big overarching like history lesson. But I would just say like really what it is the new era of the internet, Web3 is like, it's what our kids are going to grow up in, the same way that our parents didn't know what the hell social media was. Like now we're just getting introduced to the new iteration, which is the metaverse, And so that's kind of that.
And I think I think you did a perfect job explaining that. While you were saying that, I was like, my guy needs to create a timeline infographic, which I'm sure there's thousands out there, but you got to create your own, create your own. No, that was good though. I think one thing I just want to say is please understand that Web3 is here to stay. These aren't like cool words that just popped up on the internet, like other things. Like Web3 is here to stay. The metaverse is here to stay. It just adopt that, believe that, and don't even argue with it. And learn about it. And because especially if you're our age, like, look, you should do that too if you're 50, 60, 40, 30. But if you're between 19 and 35, 40 right now, like, please just learn. But I just want to say
the same way, like, probably kids that were like 10 years older than we are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they had just if they had like really used their phones and traded stocks on their phones mobily the way they can, who gives a fuck how much your phone is?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares if you spend $1,000 on your phone? You can make that $1,000 trading stocks on your phone. Like kids are making tons of money trading cryptos on their phones, trading NFTs on their computers. Like, it's insane, right? And so, we cater to that next like era of innovation, right? We want to build another base layer on the internet. Mintdropz really builds digital infrastructure, right? Mintdropz Sports, particular, is all about bringing it to the fans and bringing it to the athletes.
I love it. So when you get on your website, the first thing you see in big bold letters is monetize your content with your exclusive access platform. So break it down to people. What exactly? I'm gonna just say, what does that mean? Obviously, what does that mean? Or, what is the specific service you're providing for? Let's say, I don't know, a professional boxer right now wants to leverage his audience. He has a big audience on Instagram. Let's say he has 30,000 followers. He's a new professional boxer. He has 1-2 professional fights under his belt. What is he coming to you for?
There's different levels, right? I'll start with the pros first, and then I can even break it down for like even at your level,
Good. So awesome.
With the pro, there's a number of things here, right? We're going to create some digital assets for him. The same way a rap artist would own his masters, I need you to create some digital assets so you own your version of your digital masters, right? You're not going to be in prime shape for the rest of your life, which is a shame, but you're still going to be hanging around when you're 50, 60, 70, right?
Yes.
If I can help you create some programs that you can monetize indefinitely, that would be the best thing I could do for your consumer brand, right? So my whole thing is I want to create monetization machines and put those behind creators, right? So they have the ability to take their content and create exclusive platforms, exclusive experiences, and monetize it, right? Really, my thing is I want to increase their profitability. I believe every athlete has a great cause, a great narrative already. My interest is not really to change or influence that. I think that's their personal journey. My thing is that I just want any guy, whether it's you or whether it's a professional boxer, to do fitness in their sport full time. I think that's like the basic.
Let me interrupt real quick. So when you say exclusive, does that mean that only a specific set of people have access to this content or to these products or to this service, whatever it might be that they're selling, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So like we really target on the concept of fandom, right? So my whole goal is I want in like 1% of an athlete's audience, and I want to give them essentially exclusive access and cater to them, right? So
the idea of the 1,000 fans, right?
Exactly. So this is membership based Web3 platforms, and they do, like video streaming, in-app live streaming, you have like NFT minting on there, sale of physical and digital goods, acceptance of fiat and cryptocurrencies. You got tons of features, depends on what you want to do. Then we do the whole like social tokens and NFTs, and we have those projects. So for us, it's all about, we're across 10 major sports, the usuals: NFL, NBA, WNBA, ATP, tennis, PGA, UFC, and then also like general men's and women's fitness. And I think there's one or two I'm missing, but our thing is essentially like across the board. We want to help these athletes as they transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And now, like, it's not really about you having a great profile on Instagram. It's about you creating a great platform. And it's not Instagram's platform. You are the platform.
Control, yeah.
And then also, when you have your own platform, you can create sub-creators on your platform, right? And then what you think is everyone has content in the world. Not everyone has a monetization machine, right? So you give people the ability, like, I got a guy today, he was talking about one of his artists, right? I can't mention the name, but the guy always wears a hoodie, and he said, if the guy always has a hoodie, like, that artist, if we make his platform, can we put sub artists on there, and then they get exposure, right, for being on this big artist platform, and they get some monetary compensation too, but they get the best of both worlds. So we put options and systems like that into play. And so, I do a couple of, projects like one-offs with like maybe actors, or like I do things that are cool to me, right? So that's how, that's kind of how I'm feeling in life right now, where I'm like, I want to do
Shit,
rappers.
that's cool.
I want to do rappers. I want to do like celebrity personalities, maybe if they're like actors or something, but more like personalities. And then like my main guys are my athletes,
So I want to ask, are the futures that you mentioned, are these fixed futures on the platform that they create, or can you manipulate which futures you want to have on your specific platform?
My partner, my partner Ryan, the one that really like brought me into all of this, right? He's a crazy developer. So we have some things that we do like customization on, but we don't do too much of it, just because like once you start customizing everyone's app, everyone's got a question, right?
Right.
You kind of have to put a little bit of a blockade there. If it's on a case by case basis, right? If the guy has a lot of consumer demand and the star power for it, then yeah, I mean, we can add something if it's not too expensive, no problem. But also, like, if I build something, but then it costs me like $100,000 to give it to you and put it on your platform, I'm not going to sell that to you, because I don't want that to come out of your pocket anyways, unless you explicitly say like, no, I'm making the revenue from this project, I want that in, then yeah, I'll put it in there, but I'm not going to try to push for it. So my thing is the platforms are similar, but they're never exactly the same. Every athlete's a little different depending on if they do the NFTs, if they're more into like a fitness app, if they're more into like a streaming app, think of like, we build like Netflix with a store in it, So think about like think about how popular like a series like Stranger Things was. Now imagine like the next tab over on Netflix was like shopping, and you can like click a Stranger Things t-shirt, purchase, and because you're already a member of Netflix, there's no sales funnel, right? So you just add to cart purchase because you already have your billing info,
right?
And then you're good to go,
Okay.
So we create that type of scenario, but mine's particular for athletes, right? So the idea is to create a virtual ecosystem of like essentially high level athletes, coaches, and trainers, and bring them together in the metaverse so that there's like some mutual support, whether that's like, I mean, we don't have that these particular guys, but the concept is like, imagine you have like Phil Jackson and he's talking to a group of like golfers, You know, like, is there anything that he could give them of value despite these guys not playing basketball and despite him not being a golf coach, right? And are these conversations being had otherwise, right? Whether it's between the trainers, coaches, or athletes, or just amongst the athletes themselves. Like, are top level NFL guys talking to top level tennis players? And if so, how come? You know, because when I talk to them individually, they're very similar people and they resonate with the same type of values. But like, how come this guy has certain command in his consumer brand and star power, and these guys are just not maximizing it, right? Or how come, like, I'll have a bodybuilder who drops a bunch of ebooks and challenges and programs and makes a fuck ton of money, and then I got a guy who's in the NFL with a way bigger brand who's just doesn't know where to start, right?
Right.
It's like, man, you can make an ebook on tackling, right? He just doesn't know how to, but the bodybuilder guy could teach him how to, right? So there's certain like complements.
So
right?
how would you get those people to communicate though? Because maybe I missed something you said, because what I do understand so far is obviously the platform side, membership based, exclusive, a creator or an athlete, or let's just say athletes. So athletes or celebrities can create a platform, and then they can, obviously their community comes over to that platform, they pay to have access to it, and then there's exclusive things you get access to inside that platform. So I get that idea, and that's amazing. I love it. But how exactly would you get the two creators to communicate?
So you don't want to do too much like creator cross collaboration. And the reason is creators also don't want to work with each other too much either, right? If you meet those guys at those 1% levels, they only think about themselves as they kind of need to, because that's what it takes to get to that level. So we don't do too much in that regard. We really focus on their brand, their profitability, what's going on with them, so they feel like they're the center of attention, so to speak. But we do some more like natural collaborations where, like, if multiple athletes are like all in the WNBA, we might do some project with like women in NFTs, right? Where we'll like bring them together and push something forward. Or we'll have a general conversation, like, essentially like Mintdropz Sports will bring them together, right? Whether we bring them together in a more practical sense or like in the metaverse, we kind of have a few options. It just kind of depends what they want to do,
I love it. And so what exactly does your relationship or the team's relationship with these people look like after the platforms are created? So you create the platform, they have it set up, they're monetizing, they're winning, they're making a living off of it. Are you communicating with them after that? Are they reaching out to you for anything? Like, what does that look like in terms of the company and the people that are utilizing
So their managers take care of all their day-to-day life. We are their back-end tech partner. So my role, like, I kind of see myself as a tech agent, right? So every athlete in the world needs a tech agent right now, because tech is the hottest part of business right now. And as they get into their business ventures, they need to understand how to navigate technology, right? Whether it's maximizing their brand power and their commerce, right? Or it's like getting into tech investing and moving in that manner, right? So I kind of see myself in that regard. We have, like, of course, the department for like 24/7 platform support and things like that, of that manner. But like, as far as like me directly, I keep a good rapport with them, but also like I do have a little bit of I have boundaries, right? As we all do. And so, like, I'm working 16 hours a day, but I'm not taking your calls after a certain time, or even like in the morning before a certain time. So there's certain boundaries I establish. But otherwise, like, we don't do a lot of services, so as long as the app is it's running and money's being made, like, the guys don't usually have a problem.
So. I love it. And so for people out there who may not understand the difference between maybe a Web3 app and then the apps they already use now, like, what does that look like? Because that can confuse people. Like, if I see Web3 streaming apps for athletes on your page, I'm like, okay, does that mean that it's going to be on the app store? Like, how do I get access to it? Can you kind of break that down for people?
So like a Web3 app is going to be one that will be able to connect to the blockchain. And also what you're going to see is you're going to be able to start logging into things across the board as Web3 becomes essentially more mainstream with your digital wallet. So there will be no more like 100 different login, like, usernames and passwords. That's like essentially a feature of the past. No more, like, every single person will have one, like, it's almost like having a social security ID, right, on the internet. So it's like you'll have your one like digital wallet ID, and that ID will be what gets you into these different platforms. A Web3 app for us particularly, like where we really push pace, is we do NFT minting directly on the app. So they're able to do that. And then also they can accept cryptos for payment, you know? And that's a big thing we've had is like, you know, some guys want to bring in Ethereum as payment. And so that's like the big aspect of Web3. Otherwise, like basic features, totally the same. It's more so about what the creator can do first before it jumps into like fan experience. What we try to do is make sure we build for today, so the fans experience is, you know, very familiar, but we also posture for tomorrow. Because if so, like as consumer behavior changes, we're already set up to cater to it. So that way they don't have to play catch up, you know, to their audience, so to speak, right?
I love it. I love it. And before we transition out of this, I want you to kind of flex real quick. So who are some people you guys have partnered with? Whether that's, I know I saw some Medium write up with Polygon. I know there's some specific athletes that you guys have let out that you've worked with. So yeah, flex real quick for the people, just so just so they know, that's all.
Major one, shout out to my partner Ryan. You know, we did some advancements in NFT minting, and you know, because of him, honestly, we earned a partnership with Shopify. That was a major one. So e-commerce Web2 giant. Super proud of that one. Really excited to work with them, and we have some exciting things coming out with Shopify as far as their capabilities in Web3. Right. Outside of Shopify, we have a couple of other partners, which I'm probably gonna leave off the table. Two of them I will mention, I guess are fair. Is one's Polygon. That one's already public. So Polygon blockchain, they're worth $16 billion. They're a big, massive supporter of us. Very appreciative of what they do. And another public one is Algorand. Algorand is essentially taking care of the ecosystem as all this computer stuff starts to come about, right? They're making sure that we don't burn down the rainforest as we're trying to mine these protocols. And so really like happy to be in alignment and in partnership with them, just because they're doing some things that a lot of people don't consider. You know, they give a fuck when it comes to nature and the environment, and a lot of people in tech don't, realistically. And so that's major. And so outside of those two, man, what's another public? I got a couple that are private. And
You're good.
Those are public ones. And then when it comes to athletes, I'd say like, you know, we're across the board, all major sports. You know, a few, I guess I feel comfortable sharing. You know, we're working on something right now with Vayner Sports and Tony Ferguson.
Love it.
So
love it.
That's a pretty cool project. Hoping to see maybe Gary's involvement in that.
Side note, it's pretty cool. Just like when I interview like people for the podcast, just like the small connections throughout. I've interviewed a few people that work not directly for Vayner Sports, but they work for Vayner Media. And so it's just funny. There's always these like light connections throughout, and you figure out this person knows this person. These people ended up working together, but yeah. I love it. I love it so much.
Like another badass we have coming out is Kyron Holden. He's an IFBB pro. Super excited for him. Dude's done a lot of like history setting, like accomplished things going on in the IFBB space. We have another guy, NDO Champ, badass influencer. He was like you know, a product essentially of like warfare in Liberia, and you know, escaped that, came to the US, and has done a lot of really, really cool shit. And then you know, we have something going on with Shaquem Griffin, badass football player. Those two twin brothers played for the Seahawks, and I believe you know, they're still going pretty strong now. And so we want to do a project with them and involve a couple blockchains. So that's really exciting. Those are some guys. And then otherwise we have about I can't really keep count of them. There's like 90 or so.
I love it.
Athletes. They're all just like, we're really holding them privately right now. and then we're deciding whether Mintdropz Sports wants to do like a full-on release, like a full-on press release, get the blockchains involved, and essentially let everyone know we're on the scene. But on the other hand, we might also do like a drip release where like we have 5 platforms coming out a week or something like that. Might be a little bit more a sophisticated marketing rollout. So we're seeing what's the move there. The whole idea is just we just want to dominate, not compete. So we got to figure out what's like, what's the real way to do this, and let's not just do what other people are doing, right?
I love it. I love it. This conversation's been so fire that I want to go for another 3 hours. We're already over an hour, so I'm going to try to ask you 2 or 3 quick questions. And as much as we could probably answer them, 15-minute long answers, let's pop through, because I want to be mindful of your time, because we definitely went over what I expected to keep you on here for, but it's all in good nature, right?
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask your thoughts on startups that are, starting to come out with like, I guess platforms, products, stuff like that in Web3, and kind of just merely using Web3 as a flag for like a marketing tool. Like, what are your thoughts on people just using Web3, not for really trying to use it and leverage this new technology, but just trying to be fly and keep up with the times and use it as a marketing tool?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is like, if people out here calling themselves experts, call them out on their bullshit. You can't be an expert on something that's only been around for a couple of years, right? How are you an expert on NFTs if they were invented 13 months ago? There's no long-term studies on the effects of the products, right? So like, just a red flag for people that try to inflate what they do, inflate who they are. Just look at the results. Also, like, if you're really Web3, you're attached to the blockchains. So what's going on there? Everything with blockchains it's public. That's why blockchains are so special, right? It's all public information. If people are lying, verify it, right? It's the easiest thing. There's no more fraud. There's no more kind of gassing yourself up, because now, like, hey, we saw your NFT sales on the blockchain. Like, you only sold 15 pieces. You only sold 15 pieces, That's the reality.
I know we're going to see some funny, like, this is on Twitter, like, somebody's going to be like, we've been killing it. And then somebody's going to screenshot it and be like, yo, three sales, fam? Like, what?
But the whole Discord is bots. Come on, you bought the likes. I know how it goes.
Oh, Lord. Yo, you guys are dirty out here. Get out of the game. What's it called? Okay, so this might be a little bit longer answer, so we'll end on this question. Okay, boss.
No worries.
But how do you think Web3 will revolutionize the fitness industry specifically? So we're seeing a lot. We got Paceline, we got a lot of move for points, move for pay. We got a lot of stuff going on in this world. We got some cool NFTs with gym bros, some cool communities. So how else, or what are your expectations for Web3 and the intersection with the fitness industry?
Yeah, I think global fitness is continuing to skyrocket, right? It's going to be phenomenal. I think there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to fitness in Web3. I think people are not as prepared as they might think they are for like realistic consumer behavior. If you look at like how individualistic certain like fitness people are, like they don't want to be in a community, or they may not want to track things, or if they track them, they might want to do it on their notebook. So you're going to have a lot of friction that you're facing getting into these markets. A lot of it's going to have to do with like waiting for a new era of exercises to come in, like people that think it's normal to have an Apple Watch, and count your steps, right? Like realistically, we're a much healthier generation than past generations, right? Like we wear Apple Watches. Almost everyone now has a gym membership. We all have like great like general diets, right? Unless you're in a food desert, even then your community's getting called out for being a food desert, right? Relatively compared to the generations before us, there weren't even public gyms at this rate, right? No one had a gym membership like that. Like they did not push women in sports in that manner. Like, if you just looked at the way like they abused drugs and what they ate, like we're just a much healthier generation, right? So like I think fitness in its entirety is doing great. People are, they're getting into it. It's just commonplace now, and we're really we're helping each other advance in that manner. I think really putting technology into it is going to be tough. because at the end of the day, like, I mean, your human body does not need technology to get a workout, you know? Like, that's the truth, you know? If you want to make things fun, if you want to make them engaging, if you want to take it to the next level and offer a catered experience, then market that. But don't market the fact that this is like necessary for fitness to move forward. Fitness will move forward either way. Like, but like, I think a great complement to fitness will be Web3, the whole exclusive platforms. You know, you have virtual gyms coming about, you have NFT communities, like virtual communities and whatnot, right? Like, those are phenomenal. Those are going to make a lot of like almost like team building environments. So I think like more power to those projects, but like, just, you know, see that some people, like, there's a lot more work to put in before it's like common, you know? I think some people just, they want it to happen now. They're recruiting as many people as they can to get into it. So in them, in their circle, it's common. Realistically, it's not common, you know? Until fucking 24-hour fitness does something when it comes to move to earn, once fucking Nike does something when it comes to play to earn, like, then maybe something will fucking happen, you know? But like, a lot of people are like, no, I'm gonna make the sports company of Web3 the giant. Like, hopefully, I hope you do, more power to you, but likely it's gonna be one of these giants from Web2, like Optimum Nutrition, Evogen, Under Armour, Nike, that's gonna come in, buy out some technology and dominate Web3. What they do is completely up to them, but I think it would be cool, right? Like, if they did something with Move to Earn, where you earned a certain type of incentive for every step you took in your Nikes, and maybe, yeah, maybe you don't cash out those social tokens, maybe you can donate them to a charitable cause. Now you have that whole like Echo Red thing going, where you earn a certain number of points and you can donate a pair of Nikes to another kid, like, at your choice. Like, that would be cool, right? But I think like otherwise, people need to understand how to live in today while also building for tomorrow, right? Being a little practical, not getting lost in startup land ideas, right? And actually understand, like, okay, well, what's the business, you know? Like, let's not focus on raising a bunch of capital or making a bunch of businesses and seeing what's happening. Let's make capital, right? Don't raise capital, like, make it. Like, what are your sales, you know? That's what I want to know. So it's like, that's what I would really like put the focus on, right? As far as I see it. I think otherwise, like, it's another niche of Web3, super cool, a lot of badass people getting into it, influencers are going to get into it, but you know, you have to just find your place, you know? But I think if you are interested in fitness and technology, it's never been a greater time, you know? Like, the way I tell like those IFBB pros is, like, Arnold got the shot with Universal, and so he got the movie, you know?
Right.
And the other phenomenal bodybuilders, Lee Haney, you know, Frank Zane, all those guys, washed to the side, you know?
Yep.
My idea was like, man, if I was on the scene and I gave all those guys platforms and they could monetize their followings, they all would have made millions, you know? Yeah, Arnold would make billions no matter, right?
Right.
But Frank and those other guys that went broke, they would make millions because they'd be able to create ebooks, they create programs, they'd be able to take what is like the limitations of a zip code that you feel in your day-to-day training with people and evaporate that and now cater to a global economy, right? Because now everyone can do their workouts everywhere, which means you have to be sleeping when your Australia clients are doing your workouts, right? Of course you're scalable, right? You're making money in your sleep, you're set up this way. So I think that's like, I mean, you know, athletes of today are pretty fortunate, right? They're in like a great time where technology has rapidly advanced, and it's made it so that they can completely maximize their brand power. And you know, just look at like what our parents were able to do. It wasn't even close, you know? Like, if you wanted to build a business, like, you did not think about your customers living in, you know, 17 different countries, you know?
Right.
You didn't have to dub your workouts in Spanish or something, you know? That's what, like, you know, that's the first world problem some of these guys are facing, you know?
No, that's real.
So,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Man, you shared like literally so much fucking value plus inspiration today. Big blessing. I'm glad this is the last podcast interview today, because you're leaving me on a fucking great note. Because look, you know, as much as I'd love to say every single guest is the most amazing guest ever, it's just not true. So I'm glad that you was
competitive too. I'm competitive. I wanted to be like, I heard you had some other guests today. I was like, okay, I gotta be better. I
Oh
gotta bring
well,
more energy. I gotta
hey,
do.
well
I'm
you killed
competitive,
it.
you know.
Well, you killed it. You definitely killed it, man. I'm looking forward to sharing the full podcast and also just a whole bunch of fire ass snippets with
Yeah, man.
with the communities across
We'll
the
do,
web works.
we're doing this whole program called the 100 Pros. I won't share anything about it, but once that's public, maybe we'll reconnect, and then I can like let you know on all the athletes, every department across the board.
No doubt. No
And
doubt.
then it'll be a little
We'll have
bit
to
easier,
we'll have to
right?
make sure that one's in person. Might have to fly
Hell
out to
yeah.
Cali.
This is what I do. Or I'm gonna sign an athlete in Kansas City. We'll do an app launch party. You come cover it, you know?
Boom.
The
Say
thing is
Lesky.
what athlete lives in Kansas City? That's what I need all of Kansas City right now to figure that the fuck out. We'll get them signed.
Everyone DM Patrick Mahomes and tell him to fuck with Mintdropz.
You know, tell them we'll sponsor them. It's not gonna cost them anything. It's, you know, we make things happen for guys.
I love it. I love it. Hey man, well, before we head out of here today, let the people know where they can find you, how they can support you, and yeah, man. Anything else you want to share?
Man, I had to check my own IG handle just so I make sure I don't say it wrong. But it is Ranteg X, RANTEGX. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, feel free to say what's up. I try to be fairly active on there. But also I'm spending, 14 to 16 hours a day in this office. So I'm pretty hit or miss on socials. But I am super into connecting with people. I'm a big believer in the power of network, and it's everything, right? So I love seeing people in my network grow. I mean, my whole goal is for you to grow, for this to become a major media company. And then as it grows, I'll never ask you for anything. I'm just gonna support you. And then what happens is when my kids want to do media, I'm gonna say, hey, Collis, you owe me an internship, and my kids are gonna come your way, right?
I love it. Long-term thinking.
That's kind of how I see everything. So my thing is I want everyone in my network to grow and benefit, because that's really like really the value. And then it's really our children that get the fruition of that, right?
I love it. I love it. I love that so much.
Glad to connect.
Hell yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed this podcast, which I know you did. Share it with a friend because that is the only way we can grow. And aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, you already know who it is. CIZZY, you dig, signing out.